Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Now, I know all of our listeners have heard of Cameron Young, the former Wake Forest All-American and current PGA Tour player who's had so much success over the past couple of years. You've all heard of Cameron, but not everybody has heard or met or seen or talked to his mom, Barbara. So I thought, what a great idea today to give a successful junior golfer, successful college golfer, successful PGA Tour player's mother an opportunity to talk about what the life of a golf mom, what it looked like early in Cameron's career, what it looked like as he was developing his game, the recruiting process to Wake Forest, the time in college, and his time since he's been a professional on the PGA Tour. Barbara is a terrific lady, a good player in her own right, but also just a really good example of, I think, of how a good parent can help his son achieve his dreams, but also help him keep good perspective. So I really appreciate Barbara Young for coming onto the podcast today, and I really think you're going to enjoy this interview. Okay. Better Than I Found It listeners, let's give a big welcome to Barbara Young, mother of PGA Tour player Cameron Young. Barbara, thank you for joining me today on Better Than I Found It.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. I'm not usually in this position, but hopefully I can provide something.
Well, I think you will. I really do. I've been thinking about this theme, the golf parent or golf mom theme, for probably over a year now, just thinking, how would I present it? What does it look like? Who would I have come on here? And a good friend of mine and also a nice friend or acquaintance of yours now, Maggie Roller from Tulsa, she asked me one day, said, are you in need of ideas for podcasts? And I said, oh, always, anytime. And she said, well, how about Barbara Young, Cameron Young's mom? And I said, okay, I don't know Barbara, and then she told me a story of how the two of you met at the PGA Championship. First of all, Maggie is to blame for the reason you're on here today.
Okay, I'll remember that.
Please remember that. But also, I think it's kind of almost serendipitous and sort of a God thing, or sort of a, providential thing, if you will, that the two of you got together to begin with. Talk to me about the PGA Championship in Tulsa.
Yeah, I had never been to Tulsa before. And something I enjoy doing is when I'm in a new place is finding a church to attend. Cameron obviously was having a good week. Being a PGA family, we were, there was a lot of attention put on Cameron and my husband, who's a PGA professional and his only coach. So anyway, but Sunday morning, I, as usually do, search for a church to attend and found one very close to the tournament site, and that's where I met Maggie.
Maggie's pretty outgoing. I suppose that she kind of led that conversation right from the start, huh?
Well, actually, I'm not usually one to start things like that, but I'm always on the lookout in church for other golfers. I guess to make that connection between my faith and also the golf. And I spotted Maggie from the back row, where it's my normal comfort place to sit. And I'm like, oh, she's definitely a golfer. I wonder if she's related to one of the tour players. So I actually went over and introduced myself, and she said, no, but I am a PGA teaching professional, or LPGA. And anyway, so we just struck up a conversation, and I said, well, hey, I'm going over to the tournament. I can drive you in if you want to join me. So that's really how our friendship started. I drove her and her youngest son, John Mark, into the tournament with me, and we've been kept in close touch ever since.
Well, Maggie's great. I really have always appreciated just her input through the years. She's a podcast aficionado. She's listened to every single one of these episodes, and I know she'll be listening in closely to this one. But she's also a golf mom, just like you. She has raised, her son is at Texas Tech right now, JP, and she has been through it just everything we're getting ready to talk about, she's been through. And her suggestion to me was, why don't you have Barbara come on and just give her perspective? And for one, you all share the faith, and I do as well. That part of it's really, really important. And so we're going to talk about how that's kind of intermingled itself throughout your being a golf mom, if you will. And so, but some golf moms have a golf background and some don't. So some are coming from I played the game competitively, or and some of them are just literally, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to support my child. You come from a competitive golf background. So talk to me about how you got into the game. Talk a little bit about your competitive background so people know.
Yeah, I've been around the game most of my life. My dad loved golf. My sister and I, especially, there was four of us, but we loved all sports. And we grew up around golf, but we didn't have a lot of access being from the Northeast, a short season. But my dad would take us out and encouraged us. And my sister actually really took to it, and she turned professional after college, and I think she went to grad school. She played professionally, some in the States and in Europe and other places, and she's still currently a PGA teaching professional. So then I ended up, I tried to play myself, but I found out quickly I wasn't either good enough or tough enough. But I did run a mini tour for Lady Pros for 13 years. So I was involved in tournament operations. And then I married a PGA professional, obviously. And but my favorite job, I've been the family caddy since I was 14. I started with my sister and then my husband and then Cameron. So I love that part of the game.
Well,
just being able to be with your family out there is pretty special.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But you mentioned your husband, David. He's a PGA professional. And my dad was a PGA club professional for 40 years and was a life member of the PGA of America. And my mom, when I was about 8 or 9, they built my dad a new golf shop, if you will. And I don't know, do you all call it a pro shop or a golf shop? I want to know. What do you all call it?
Both.
Both. Okay. Well, it was definitely a golf shop when I was a kid because the club had the tennis part, it had the dining, it had all of that. And so this was the golf shop. I think they call it pro shop a lot nowadays, but I watched my mom navigate the life of a club professional, and it was kind of necessary in our family of 7 that she would be involved in the business.
Wow, 7.
Yeah, 7. It was crazy. And all the kids at one time or another were out at the club doing something. But my older brother, Tim, my twin sister, Patty, and I spent the most time out of there. But I watched my mom every day at the club, and it was very interesting to see her navigate that. So what was it like for you through the years being the wife of a club professional, and how much involvement did you have out at the club?
Yeah, it's a different kind of challenge. As with anything, there's the good and the bad part of it. My experience was mostly in golf operations. I'm not much for clothes and selling things, but I did sometimes help with marking courses and scoring and scoreboards and whole locations. They have a lot of tournaments at Sleepy, so I did some of that. But Dave pretty much kept me out of the golf shop. He knows that's not my strength. As far as the good part about it is we had almost unlimited access to the facilities there, which was great. And we could visit my husband for lunch and, sometimes sneak a few holes in after a long day. But the hours are pretty silly, 7 days a week. And it was awfully kind of lonely. And almost every family gathering or holiday, it was Cameron and I without Dave coming. And Dave missed most of Cameron's, sports growing up and even in college. And as you know, dinner could be any time of night. You just never know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you described that. I remember that being a kid. My mom had a crock pot that got used all the time. So she would put something on in the morning and then she'd go to work and my dad would be at work all day long. And he was a 7 days a week kind of guy. And at some point when you were hungry, you went by the crock pot and dished something out. And you learned how to make cornbread because you had to. It was an interesting way, but I will say this: I wouldn't trade growing up at a golf course for anything. And I know you were able to, and Dave were able to raise Cameron at a golf course. Such a
Yeah,
positive place to be.
such a blessing. Oh, absolutely. And honestly, when you are in the business like that, I think one of the hard things we had to navigate was we had a kid that was as good at sports, and we wanted him so much to like golf, but sometimes when you're involved in it like we are, it can be too much, and you can push your child away from it by forcing it. And so we were very mindful of that, just trying to encourage him and not ever force him to do anything, and just try to help him have fun with the game. So that was something we could all do together. That was
Wow.
the main focus when he was a
Well,
kid.
that's fantastic because it leads right into what I wanted to talk about. My dad was a club professional, and all six of my brothers and sisters had started the game at age 5. And my dad tried to get me started at age 5. I hated it. I didn't want to be around the game. And so I faked a sickness every Friday morning on junior golf morning the whole summer. And finally, my dad said to me the last day when he was taking my sister and my brother to the golf course for the little junior tournament in August, he looked at me and said, Michael, you don't have to play golf. You don't have to fake being sick. I'm not going to make you play golf. I mean, it was like the weight of the world was off my shoulders. Thank you, Dad, for that, because he allowed me to come to the game when I wanted to. And I've been in the game every day since 1969 because my dad didn't force me into the game. But it gets to a quote by a guy named Bob Shipley that I got off the internet a couple of years ago, and I want to give it to you. And that is, dear parents, don't pour so much into your kids' athletic career that you forget to teach them about life. When it's over, and it will be, they'll be left with who they are, not what they used to be. I just love that quote because it puts all of this athletics and sports and tournaments and into perspective. I mean, it sounds like to me, you and David already had that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, your main focus as a parent is to raise a responsible child that is productive and appreciates life and the gifts that they're given. So yeah, definitely, that's a great way of putting it. I can't really put it any better than that.
Well, it was a quote that I wrote down. I've got a little journal I keep that's called Stuff That Works. And I put it in there because I just felt like, man, that's a great thing. At some point, I'll be able to tell somebody. And it's like, the real important thing is here what you're teaching them about how they can go out and, and kind of navigate life. And not all parents are going to have a junior player that ends up being a PGA Tour player like Cameron. But so we're going to get to there. And when I appreciate your perspective on that. But when did you actually start taking Cameron to tournaments? At what age was he?
Well, the first one he played in he was 9 years old. And my husband had saw something in Cameron and had wanted him to start playing in some tournaments, but he really was resisting. No, that's okay. And then finally he was 9. And I said, there's a whole 9-hole tournament. Do you want to go play? Okay. So we took him over there, and I got there, and one of the kids he was playing with was very good. And I asked his mom, well, how long has he been playing? And it's a bunch of 9-year-olds. She said 5 years. I'm like, 5 years? Oh my gosh. 5 years of tournament play. Anyway, so he finished like third or something. And we are driving home in the car, and I took a few minutes, and then I said, well, Cameron, what did you think of that? Is that anything you want to do again? And he goes, you bet I do. And I was like, oh, okay. I think he was mad that he lost and he wanted to redeem himself. But that's where it started. But he played every other sport, eventually baseball and ice hockey, in addition to golf, were his 3 main ones. But yeah, so he was 9 years old when it started.
My dad got me started, or I came to the game at 9 after 4 years of deciding, okay, this is what I want to do. And I remember my dad said, okay, we're going to Tulsa, which was about 2 hours away from my hometown. And we were taking my brother Tim to the J. Myers Memorial Junior Golf Tournament at Meadowbrook Country Club. but I didn't know anything about it. Had never been to a tournament, didn't know what we were doing. And so I followed my brother that day, and he played very well. He was one of the best juniors in Oklahoma at the time. And I remember in the parking lot when we were headed home, I said to my dad, "I'm mad at you." And he looked at me and said, "Well, why are you mad at me?" I said, "Because he gets to play in these tournaments. How come I don't get to play in these tournaments?" And I don't know if it was my dad's idea, like if I'll take Michael over, he'll really decide he wants to do this. And I said, yes, that's what I want to do. And so I played in 2 tournaments that summer, 1-day events, but it was like, not being forced to it. I came to it with a fervent, belief that this is what I want to do, not because I was forced, because I was allowed to. So,
right. I think that's critical.
Very critical. So, but let's talk about this too. It's still your child, and you're at a tournament. I mean, you must have been nervous watching. I mean, I was talking to a player this week who was watching qualifying. He was injured, and he was watching qualifying. And he said it's way different perspective watching qualifying or watching the guys. But I imagine from a parent's perspective, you were probably pretty nervous early on.
I'm pretty good about that. It's harder for my husband, who's also his dad and his coach. But I think all the years of caddying, I had cared so much about how my sister did and how my husband did. And I realized it was no fun being a part of it if my stomach was in a knot the whole time. So I really learned how to keep my emotions in check and just enjoy the process, if you will, to understand that there's going to be good days and bad days, good shots and bad shots. But no one shot or one tournament or one day is that critical. And it's more important to stay focused on, like when I was caddying, I just wanted to enjoy sharing that experience with them. And also just watch the ebb and flow and the eventual progress. I think if I could tell parents anything, it's like there is going to be good days and there are going to be terrible days, and they might last for a while, but there's always another tournament. And no matter what happens, it's critical and important for your child's growth to have successes and failures. So, I wouldn't get too caught up in any one particular day or shot or tournament.
Great advice. I have a kind of a funny story. I won't say the name, but one of my junior players that I coached in Edmond, Oklahoma, when I was a high school coach, he was at age 11, he won 16 1-day junior golf tournaments in the summer of whatever it was. He won everything.
Wow.
So the next year he was 12, and he bumped up to the 12 and 13. So now he's playing against some 13-year-olds. And you know how boys mature. Those 13-year-olds could be 6 inches taller and 50 pounds heavier and knock it 80 yards down the fairway further. So he wasn't winning every tournament, but he did win a few tournaments. So we were in a small town in western Oklahoma, and I was following our older kids that were going to be on the high school team. And this father came running up to me up the 18th fairway. And I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he's screaming, "My son is blah, 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 and he's thus, and he 3-putted, and he just gives all of these terrible things that had happened during the round." And I thought, okay. And he said, "And he's over here having fun and joking and laughing with his playing partners." And I said, "Okay, so is something wrong?" And he goes, "The last place on the golf course the last place in the world to have fun is on a golf course. What is he doing?" Okay.
Boy, you can't. I mean, if you could bottle that, I mean, my goodness. Yeah.
Well, and he loved his son, but he was so used to winning, he thought, how can he have fun not winning? And the truth is, we win so very rarely in golf. You better learn how to enjoy it even when it's not great.
That's so true. It's not easy. It's a hard game. But I think just being able to take the good with the bad and knowing that that's just goes with the territory is very helpful. And even if you can have fun through it, I'm not sure I can do that. But anyway, God bless
well,
that
but I mean, it's good advice for a college coach. It's good advice for a PGA Tour player, whoever, when you're competing. And I know none of us like playing poorly, but you've got to figure out how to enjoy the experience if you can. And you mentioned caddying, and you've done it on numerous occasions. So I know that's a great learning experience, and it's also a great opportunity to have a good experience with your son. But what's your favorite memory on the bag for Cameron? The absolute favorite memory that you can think about?
Well, I have to tell you there's two.
Okay.
But actually, I love the whole thing, so it's hard to pick out even two. But the first one is he was still fairly young, and he was playing in a local event, and he hit it like a crooked tee shot. And he did this twice in the same round where he's like, Mom, I have to hit it under that and then over that tree and then make it hook. And I'm like, okay, sure, go for it. And he did the exact thing that he said, and he did it twice in the same round. And I was like, okay, I can't help him anymore because I can't hit those shots, and therefore I can't visualize those shots. So that's where I thought, okay, I'm just a bag toter now. But probably my favorite memories are from the U.S. Amateur. I think that's one of the greatest competitions in golf. It's so fun. Cameron made match play, I think 6 times. And I just think that is so fun. When he was 17, he made it to the quarterfinals. And my husband calls me and he's like, I'm going to come down. He says, do you know if he wins 2 more matches, he gets to play in the Masters? And I was like, what? Like, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. So anyway, when it gets down to those final groups, it's fun because you have a whole entourage of people surrounding that match and they're all going together. So, that's definitely one of the highlights.
Did you caddy in every one of those USAMs where he made match play?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Sometimes my husband and I would trade off, but he couldn't always go.
Right. Well, when people hear this, you're going to get some phone calls about being a caddy, because anybody that's that successful as a caddy must be doing something right. I can't be responsible for all the phone calls you get and all the future opportunities in caddying. I can't be responsible. All right. So caddying, obviously, I've caddied for a lot of my players through the years, and I think it's a great experience for me personally. But we're talking a golf mom here. So getting back to when you weren't actually caddying, how involved were you in the following? So I'm going to ask a bunch. You can kind of just answer as you best you can. With getting tournament entries in, scheduling, attending golf lessons that he was having with Dave, recruiting letters, emails, phone calls, and visits. What was your role at the tournament site? So how involved were you as a parent in any or all of those things?
I did a lot of the legwork. I would say that Dave and Cameron set the schedule more than I did. Dave was more in tune to what would be good for him to play in. I will say this, especially when Cameron was younger, we were very fortunate to live in the New York area. Even though the season is short, the golf organizations are fantastic, and the golf courses that you get to play in are fantastic. With all the Wingfoots and Baltusrolls and Westchesters, there's many, many dozens of other great courses where they hold competitions, and the competitions have a long history, some of them going back 100 years. So we didn't have to travel far, and Cameron played a lot of local events. So, I was always the driver. Dave was always busy. I watched many lessons. I took them as far as you asked about recruiting and that type of thing. Yeah, we were very fortunate in that case because Cameron peaked at just the right time. So we didn't really have to work too hard at getting looks from the college coaches and invitations to come look at courses at colleges. But that's a very stressful time for a kid. And I think parents need to be mindful. I mean, your kid is 16 or 17 years old. They feel like they're making the most important decision of their life. And even in Cameron's case, where there really were no bad choices for him, he really felt the stress. Everybody was asking, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And he really felt pressure coming from a lot of places, not from us so much. So that is a stressful time for the kids. I think, like we told Cameron, there's no bad choices here. You just choose what you feel is right. I really felt for him the thing that helped clarify his decision was going and spending a night or a weekend at the college. That was very helpful in him deciding where he wanted to go. So, I would say, just be mindful how stressful it is on your kid. There was no happier kid than the day Cameron called Jerry Haas and said, Jerry, I'm coming to Wake. The pressure was off. He was so relieved. But
I've seen that happen on numerous occasions, and we college coaches forget sometimes. Those kids are going through the first and only recruiting process they're probably going to go through, and we do it every year. So we're pretty comfortable with it. It's not so easy for a mom or a dad or the player himself. It's not that easy. But I did ask Jerry about you. So I did some reconnaissance work here. This is what he told me. He said she was a great mom. So was David. They let Cameron develop into his own player and person. I think a lot of her, and she's a very good player in her own right. Could not have been more supportive of the program and always saying positive things. So I'm going to tell you, that's a good report right there from Jerry Haas, but it's not always that way for a college coach when he's speaking about a parent, because a lot of times the experience isn't as good. You made it great for Jerry Haas. So he wanted me to tell you thanks on that.
Well, it was easy. And I would, I think you have to trust the coaches a little bit. I think there's a tendency for parents to want to be over involved in things. And, you just have to have some trust in what they're going to be doing and that they have some experience working with these kids. And, our approach was mostly hands off. If Jerry would call or contact us, if there was something that he felt we needed to address or know, or, sometimes he would ask Dave, about certain things. But for the most part, we were hands off. Just let the coach do their job.
That's really good advice for a lot of parents, because it is the first time they're away from home. First time they're dealing really with adults. There's a conflict resolution they've got to go through, because it's not perfect every day with any coach. And so anyway, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's one of the hardest things to do, because and for coaches, sometimes we overcoach. We do. Sometimes we overcoach. We try to do too much instead of letting the racehorse, the thoroughbred run. It could be that same way for parents. Sometimes they try to overparent in that process. And some parents have told me all they really wanted to be was a good counselor to give wise counsel to the player as he goes through, and they would be a part of it, but they would ultimately, it's his decision. So it sounds like you did that, you and Dave.
The other thing I'll say is don't be surprised. That adjustment from high school to college is hard for a lot of kids. And my son, there was no kid more ready to get to college and start college golf than Cameron Young. But he struggled that first semester. And so I wouldn't be surprised. It's a big adjustment. He was going to be a world beater. Things didn't quite start out the way he hoped. The adjustment was difficult. But they get through that. And, he had a great experience at Wake. He wouldn't trade it for anything. But don't be surprised. We got a lot of phone calls and things that first semester. But he worked through it and, was better for it.
I remember when my first semester as Mike Holder's assistant coach at Oklahoma State was Charles Howell's first semester as a freshman. And Charles came in as the number one ranked junior player in the country. He had made match play and got to the quarterfinals, got beat by Tiger Woods in the quarterfinals the year before in the USAM. So he was a great player. And he averaged 74 that fall in tournament competition. And while he would have a great spring and go on to be an All-American that year, his fall freshman year was like off the charts. And I learned something in my very first semester as a college golf coach. It's like, it doesn't matter how good they are as a junior golfer, they're still kids,
Hmm.
and it's not easy. And so Mike Holder did, I think, a masterful job of keeping Charles comfortable and, where he could get through that spot, but it wasn't easy on Charles. And once he got on the other side of that homesickness, he was a rock star. He was fantastic. So it's not surprising to hear that even Cameron had some troubles as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we mentioned you watching at tournaments and your perspective on that. And so I've already kind of asked you about that, but how has faith played into your ability to handle a poor tournament or a poor round, and also a great tournament or a great round? I mean, how has your faith been able to help you guide Cameron through those days and yourself as well?
It's a huge blessing in life and in golf. And, it certainly made the journey much less stressful, knowing that God is in control, that he loves my child, and that his plan for Cameron is what's best. So even if I don't understand it at times, that reality has really helped me appreciate the ups and downs, because I understand that they are important for his growth and his development and his success. So, I'm not any different from any other parent. I'm always cheering my child and hoping for his success. But ultimately, the overarching hope is that God will be glorified by the talent that he has gifted Cameron with in both his golf life and his personal life. So, that's the ultimate hope. I really try to appreciate even, I'll tell you a little story. I love cheering for other kids, like the kids that Cameron played against. And he often felt like he was not playing like he should, like his peers, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler, Matt Wolff. He visualized himself as a golfer that should be competing, but he had zero status anywhere. And he thought he wasn't living up to what he thought he should be at that time. At the first time he was in contention after he got in tour, I'm watching it, and he finished tied for second in that ultimately, and I'm watching the tournament, and I'm like, oh, Victor's got a putt for birdie. Oh, that's good. Oh, well, if Victor makes that, that's not good for Cameron. And I did not. The same with Colin Morikawa. They were all in it. And I was like, oh, I don't like how I feel about this. So I've learned really to just appreciate when somebody does something well, whether it's my son or somebody else's, just to take joy, because there's other parents and other people that are rooting for that kid too. So, while we want our kids to do well and win and stuff, trying to appreciate other people's success, I think is not easy, but I've learned how to do that a lot better. And, even just like Scotty just won last week, I've known his parents for a long time, and I just couldn't help but send a message of congratulations. I was so excited to see him win and his success, and I took a lot of joy in it. I just appreciate good golf and how hard it is. And so when somebody does it well, kudos. You just have to hats off.
Very, very well said. Thank you on that. I feel the same way in the coaching realm. Obviously I want to succeed and I want our team to be great and all that. And we're not always on top. That's just the way it is. But when another coach, especially a young coach, but also veteran coaches, do something really special, they almost always get a text from me, because I think it's like I would want to share in that with them. We're on the same journey. It's like a journey toward trying to be as good as we can and help kids as well as we can. So it sounds like to me you have the same perspective that I have on that with the other kids that your son competed against all through the years.
Oh, definitely. And I would urge parents just to resist the urge of comparing your kid and their journey and their timing to anybody else's. I mean, Cameron's just as guilty as anybody else. when he was younger, thinking he wasn't doing well. But your journey is not going to be like anybody else's. I mean, you just have to keep plodding along. And it sounds kind of cliche, but, get a plan, stick to the plan, trust in the plan. There's going to be ups and downs, but if you do that, you're going to get closer and closer to where you want to be. You just have to go through that. There's very few people that just have a straight line to the top. But all those experiences just make you stronger and better, and also more appreciative when you achieve the things that you're going for.
Yeah. You're doing a master class here on parenting right now for me, at golf parenting. So keep it up, keep it coming. So, but you weren't always the experienced golf mom. I mean, originally when you started, I'm sure you asked some questions of other golf moms if you were at a tournament. So if you did reach out to other parents, like, what do we do? How do we do this? What's your best piece of advice you got from another parent?
Well, that's going to be disappointing for you if I'm not really, my answer is a little different. I'm more of an observer of people and situations. I always have been. And I've always been quite mindful of watching other families and parents, even when I played. And then through, Cameron's sports, even as a little kid, the interaction of parents with their kids. And from there, I just picked out things I liked or thought would work, and things that I didn't like. I'll give you an example. The very first time I caddied for Cameron, it was like the second tournament he ever played in. He was still 9, and I showed up and I was in shock. There was like 100-something 9-year-olds, so even though my husband and I were in golf, we missed the Tiger revolution. I grew up pre-Tiger. Now it's post-Tiger. There's so many kids in golf. It was fantastic to see. But that first tournament, we got paired with another parent and his son, and he was micromanaging his kids' golf, and he would like land it here, putt it here. And then, this is a 9-year-old, mind you. If he didn't do what his parent asked him to do, the parent would shake his head and roll his eyes and be upset, very visibly upset. And I took Cameron aside right then and there, and I said, "Hun, this is how it's going to work. I'm the parent and you're the caddy. I'm the caddy and you're the parent, excuse me." I said, "Every decision is on you. You can ask me what I think, but ultimately you're in charge." I said, "But if you misbehave, I'm still your mom." So that was pretty much our deal. I just felt as though I needed to allow him to own his own game, to make his own mistakes so that he can learn from them, and that he didn't have to depend on somebody else to decide things. I just think allowing him to make mistakes is more important than, especially for a junior golfer, than, like trying to force him to do everything just right and perfectly. I just don't think that's a recipe for ultimate success or reaching your potential. I think you have to own it. And I think parents shouldn't be afraid to allow their kids to fail. I think we try to protect them too much from that. And I think that doesn't really work in the end.
Well, what you just described actually opens up the player. It gives him more freedom to go compete and learn those lessons without fear of retribution. You 3-putted twice today, you're going to run at 2 miles. There's been documented cases through years where parents have been really, really rough on a child because he played poor. I always tell my guys, I try not to punish your bad golf because I've played more bad golf than you have. So why would I punish bad golf? It's like, you try not to do that if you can. And but I think Cameron was more free to be the competitor and the great little player that he was, because you said, you're in charge of this game. If you misbehave, that's a different story. But if you just play badly, I can live with that.
Yeah. I think my idea about that is, like, I can't make my kid be great. I have no power to do that. He either has it in him or he doesn't. I can provide opportunity, I can provide encouragement, but ultimately it's it's up to him using his God-given talent, to the best of his ability. And so I think, for parents to think they can make their kid be the next Tiger Woods, that's just not realistic at all. Let them have fun with them, let them grow, let them learn. I mean, a life in golf to me is just a life rich in so many ways, and that's enough. I'd love to see, we want to see our kids reach their potential and all that, but that also comes with a price too. So, I mean, there's a part of me that wishes Cameron just played for fun, because now it's all too serious.
It is.
But, I miss those old days, so to speak. Not that I'm not extremely grateful for the success that he's had, but, if you're a great player, there's room for you out on tour. But I couldn't make Cameron into a great player if I tried. I can only just offer him encouragement and opportunity and see what happens.
I think that's another nugget of wisdom for college golf coaches, because sometimes they get we get wrapped up in, okay, I'm going to make this kid a tour player. You're not going to do that. You're going to recruit the best kid you possibly can. You're going to hopefully put good people around him. You're going to encourage him, motivate, push, and hold him accountable, and try to push him closer to that dream. But you can't make him a tour player, and a mother can't do it either. It's just not going to happen.
No, it's true.
So
I sometimes say, I was just going to say this. I mean, sometimes we get asked, like, well, when did you know Cameron could make it on tour? And we're like, well, when he did it. Like, yeah, he's talented and all that, and it looked good, but until they actually do it, you really do not know. I mean, it's just that simple.
yes, it is that simple. But a lot of people don't think that, because they feel like if I orchestrate every move, choreograph every move, do all of these things, then my son will be a tour player. It's just not the case. And I think you and Dave have taken a really healthy approach, meaning let's just enjoy it. The fact that you got to caddy for Cameron as a kid growing up, and the fact that your ground rules were, listen, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is not misbehave. The rest of it's on you to figure out how good you want to be. Wow, that's really, really good. So finally, so before we shut down here, I'm going to ask you for your best piece of advice, just one thing, if you could. But before I ask that, how many tournaments will you and Dave get to actually see this year in person?
Dave will go to more than I have. We've gone to a lot. We went to a lot last year because it was the first. You never know if he's going to keep his card in the beginning. So we did as much as we could. We've been to quite a few this year. Dave's going next week. I don't know exactly. I'll probably, we're definitely going to the Masters. Whether we'll go to overseas for the Open Championship, that's yet to be decided. Dave is not as free as me to choose, because, Cameron's like, Dad, I need you here, or I need you there. So, we don't have the whole year schedule yet. It's really kind of more of a week by week or month by month kind of thing. But surely Dave will be at most of them. And okay. I probably won't get to half of them, but I'll get to quite a few.
Good for you. Well, okay, one other dynamic. I just thought about this. I thought about it a few days ago, but hadn't planned for it this morning. Dave is Cameron's only instructor. If you look back on it, Jim Furyk had one instructor, his father. Justin Thomas has pretty much had his dad as an instructor. So there's a few examples of really successful PGA Tour players who only took golf lessons from their dad. So is that dynamic still working out beautifully? Is that still something they want to keep moving?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, there was a brief time where my husband was, questioning himself, because obviously he's never had a student as good as Cameron. And, so he had doubts. Am I leading him the right way? Am I missing something? He still feels a lot of pressure relating to Cameron's performance. He takes all the blame and none of the credit. But it works really well. They communicate great. Dave is not one of these guys that, is nitpicky. Cameron's much more picky about how he's swinging, and but that their relationship works good. And over the years, it's been a lot of like swing videos transferred back and forth on the phone because Dave was so wrapped up in his job at Sleepy Hollow. But no, they get along great. They work together well. So no signs of that changing anytime soon.
I love hearing that. So do you have one piece of advice to give a parent that you think would be good advice for any parent of a young junior player, a competitive junior, a great junior player? Just a piece of advice you think would help any parent.
One thing. Oh, that's tough.
Well, you could be
I
more
would
than
say
one.
I could. Okay. Well, the first thing I would say, there's no one right way of doing things. Like, for example, Cameron played a lot of local golf. We had no reason to travel and go places to play golf. It really wasn't until he was much older, 15, 16, 17, that we sometimes took him out of the area to play. So you don't have to do anything one certain way. The other thing I would say is, and I can give Maggie a little credit on this, is like, remind your child how much you're enjoying watching them compete. Pick out something you enjoyed watching, even if they had a bad day. And that it doesn't matter how they finish. There's always another tournament to play in. I used to tell Cameron when things weren't going well, honey, learn the lesson and then move on. There's always another tournament around the corner. So there's no one thing that's that critical or important. So, just try to enjoy it. Try to learn what you can. Try to grow as a player. That would be what I would suggest.
Great advice. Barbara, thank you so much for joining me today. You've given so much good information that if a parent, and by the way, you're a golf person giving that parent advice. There's a lot of people who don't even know about golf that are going to get great information here to help them move forward in their son's junior golf career, and then the recruiting into college golf, and then the college golf career as well. So I really appreciate you spending an hour with me here today. It's been fantastic, and I just want to wish you the best of luck going forward, and Cameron the same.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And we'll give Maggie Roller credit for having you on this podcast. She's the one that encouraged me, and I think it's been great. It's everything I wanted to be and more. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much.